You're watching Qnews. Here are the top stories for this hour. The U.S. State Department has approved the sale of bombs, demolition equipment and other weapons to Israel in a deal worth nearly $3 billion. The Pentagon confirmed that Congress was notified on an emergency basis regarding the sale, which includes 35,529 general-purpose bombs, 1,000 kilograms each, and 4,000 bunker buster bombs of the same weight. Part of the shipment could come from U.S. immediate stockpiles. This marks the second time in a month that the Trump administration has declared an emergency to fast-track weapons sales to Israel. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer underscored the urgency of rebuilding Gaza without displacing its residents during a phone call between the two leaders. The Egyptian leader reaffirmed that the establishment of a Palestinian state along the pre-June 4th, 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital is the only guarantee for lasting peace in the region. The call also covered Egypt's efforts to enforce the ceasefire, facilitate detainees exchange and deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza residents. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres confirmed his participation in the extraordinary Arab Summit on Gaza scheduled for Tuesday in Cairo, Egypt. Guterres emphasized the need for sustainable reconstruction in Gaza and a political solution to the crisis. He also called for avoiding renewed hostilities, stressing that there should be no long-term Israeli presence in the Strip. Qatar has submitted a memorandum to the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, regarding the legal obligations of Israel towards international organizations. The Qatari submission demands that Israel allow UN agencies to operate freely in the occupied territories and protect humanitarian facilities and workers. Qatar also called for lifting the Knesset's ban on the UNRWA activities and ensuring unhindered humanitarian relief efforts. Hamas declared its full commitment to implementing all phases of the ceasefire agreement in Gaza and called on the international community to pressure Israel into honoring its obligations. Meanwhile, Israeli media cited a government source stating that Israel does not consider itself bound by the ceasefire agreement without a clear consensus on Gaza's future and the weakening of Hamas authority. U.S. President Donald Trump described his meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as not good. Speaking to reporters in Washington, Trump stated that Zelensky must explicitly declare his willingness to negotiate a ceasefire. Zelensky has sought a White House meeting to secure continued U.S. support and dissuade Washington from aligning with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who ordered the incursion into Ukraine 3 years ago. However, U.S. President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance criticized Zelensky, accusing him of disrespecting, underscoring how the shift in U.S. administration has weakened Kiev's efforts to sustain Western backing for its conflict with Russia. On his part, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky affirmed his respect for U.S. President Donald Trump and the American people in an interview with Fox News following the tense confrontation between the two leaders at the White House earlier. When asked in the interview whether his relationship with President Trump could be repaired, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky affirmed, stating that it goes beyond just the presidency, emphasizing the historic ties and strong relationship between the two nations. The highly anticipated Oval Office meeting ended in disaster as Trump and Zelensky engaged in a heated exchange before the global media, clashing over the ongoing war with Russia. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt attributed the tense encounter between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky to Zelensky's refusal to acknowledge the reality of the war. Leavitt stated that Trump understands the American people are wary of funding the war in Ukraine and blamed Zelensky's hostile approach for derailing the rare mineral deal between the two nations. She emphasized that President Trump remains committed to peace, but warned that unless Zelensky shifts his stance, a peace deal with Russia may not be possible. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed Canberra's unwavering support for Ukraine amid the Trump-Zelensky clash, stating that Australia sees Ukraine's fight as a defense of international law. Speaking to reporters in Sydney, Albanese emphasized that Australia remains firmly aligned with Kiev as the conflict continues. The World Bank is setting up to a $1 billion fund to support Lebanon's reconstruction efforts, according to Finance Minister Yassine Jabir. The World Bank will provide an initial contribution of £250 million, while donor nations are expected to supply the remaining $750 million. Protests erupted across Greece as demonstrators marked the second anniversary of the country's deadliest train crash, which killed 57 people in 2023. Clashes broke out outside Parliament, where protesters defied police tear gas and barricades, vowing to continue the fight for justice. As night fell, security forces moved in using tear gas to disperse crowds. Earlier in the day, violent confrontations erupted as demonstrators hurled petrol bombs and set fire to trash cans in Athens, while hundreds of thousands joined a nationwide strike demanding accountability for the disaster. The 2023 crash, in which a passenger train carrying students collided with a freight train, had become a symbol of Greece's deteriorating infrastructure, fueling ongoing public outrage over what many see as years of government neglect. This concludes our top stories for this hour. Many thanks for watching and goodbye.